Welcome back, everybody. It's good to have another season underway. And what a way to start it. The Indiana Fever absolutely demolished the Sky. They got destroyed, got dog walked out of Gainbridge. And first off, I want to acknowledge and congratulate the front office and Stephanie White because not only, did the front office set up one of the greatest off seasons for the Indiana Fever, bringing in tons of talent from all over, really creating a deep roster, but also getting Stephanie White, who just day and night, the faith I have in this coach and the way the team is gluing together early, the way they look defensively. I even caught Caitlyn Clark a few times deferring to Stephanie White and even apologizing to Stephanie White during the game, and Stephanie White going to bat what she had to during the big Angel Reese scuffle, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I mean, top to bottom, you have to look at the front office, you have to look at the coaching staff, and just be appreciative of what this team looks like versus what they looked like last year, as far as that goes. And they are on the money because the people they brought in are performing, the team is performing. And while this is game one, there's still a lot of room to grow. We'll talk about it as we get into the game. I mean, I got to give them top marks. So without further ado, let's dive into the game. And of course, Caitlyn Clark got a triple double. She had a few like dribbling, like almost like the ball had too much air. Maybe her guns were too strong. She lost her dribble a few times, but other than that, like she was on point. She was making her passes. There was the typical growing pains that you typically see in games with her and her new teammates, and the team kind of seeing the floor the way that she sees the floor. So sometimes it was Kelsey Mitchell not getting a read and the ball sails off into the ether, or just not being able to finish, which happened a lot. And after the first like quarter, even, I was like, man, eventually these open looks are going to fall. And when they do, the Fever, just that gap's going to get huge, and indeed it did. But they could have hung another 20 plus points on the Sky in this game if they just made some of these easy shots. And can't give Clark enough, praise. Again, triple double, 20. She was 20, 10, 10, had 2 steals, 4 blocks, and I think only 3 or 4 turnovers, which again was a main point of emphasis. I'm sure she's proud of taking care of the ball better. So the next up is Aaliyah Boston, who again started a little rusty. I've seen that throughout all the teams in this opening break, is that there's kind of some rust. Some players jump off to hotter starts, but ultimately there's like a little bit of rust that gets knocked off in the real games. And then once they get into the groove, they perform. And in this case, Aaliyah Boston was that. Her bag is so deep. I love watching her play because as a post player, she just jukes players. Like this game alone was like a highlight reel of players. Cardoso was leaving her feet flying off the screen. She just does so many just smooth plays from a big that, especially contrasting in this game to someone like Angel Reese, who's a little bit more her own style. Like it's great to see that Aaliyah Boston has range. She can hit those short jumpers. She hit a 3 in this game. She's rebounding. She had 5 blocks. And one of the things that I think is really huge and should be talked about in this game is the difference that having Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner bring to Aaliyah Boston. Because last year, when Aaliyah Boston is off the court, the Bigs defense is awful. It was non-existent. It was like a gaping wound, and Aaliyah Boston has to is like just trying to recover to get back into the game to stave off whatever run is going to happen. And this year, though, because you have Natasha Howard, who was amazing on defense tonight, and you have DeWanna Bonner, who's amazing on defense, you have just you relieve the pressure from Aaliyah Boston so she can do her best work, and she isn't completely, absolutely, utterly gassed. Now, she's still putting it all out there. There's great energy, but it's noticeable in this game alone the difference that those two make. And speaking of those two, DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard, they had their own connection going on. DeWanna Bonner was feeding Natasha Howard. Natasha Howard was a good stand-in for instead of feeding Aaliyah Boston. And it was nice to see that the offense still ran without Clark and Boston in the game. And so that is a great sign for things to come. And DeWanna Bonner, had a few tough shots tonight, but ultimately she broke his 3rd overall time in scoring, beat out Tina Thompson. And I just like DeWanna Bonner from a vet perspective. She's one of those players that will have games like this where it looks kind of slow and she picks up, but she's gonna have those games this year where I guarantee you where you're gonna be like, oh man, like I don't really feel her presence on offense, and then she's just gonna start streaking and she'll hang up 20 plus on the opposing team. So definitely excited to see her get in those kind of games and pick up, and having a veteran presence like that plays good defense super long. She forced some shot clock violations today with her length on Van Sloot. Love to have her on the team. Love to see it. And of course, Lexi, didn't hit a lot of her threes today, but she's super active. She's out there, and in the back of my head, I'm like, we have Lexi Hull, who's a spark plug. She's developing. One of the things I loved from her was she had lots of putbacks today. She definitely it almost feels like something she's been working on, where she's like beating the opposing player back up to the ball on misses or on rebounds, and actually just putting it back up and back in for baskets. So I love to see that. But I'm thinking about Lexi Hall, spark plug, Sydney Colson, who is super active. She's not Caitlyn Clark. You don't expect her to be, but she's super active on defense and hungry. And on offense, she is serviceable. And I don't feel like she's going to do loop-de-loops or do anything crazy. She's going to go and facilitate at least some offensive play, which usually ended up feeding Tasha Howard or swinging around. And then the other part was we didn't even have Sophie for this game. So once Sophie gets into the thing, you just have all these players. And a noticeable thing throughout the team is like, if they made a bad play, there was no hung heads or a full reset. It's like the player got hungrier to make up for their error, and then would go after and attack the ball, get steals, break out, equalize, that kind of thing. And so there was really no room for Sky to get into this game. And honestly, they played awful as a team. I think a lot of teams have looked different levels of rust coming in, but the Sky just are one of those teams where last year, at least you had like, Kennedy Carter, who you could, have be a spark plug for your team, and she could go 1v5 and was almost unguardable at times and could get something going in the dead periods. But this team, if they didn't shoot well, and in their defense, Fever played really good defense, so they didn't get a lot of great looks. But then Angel Reese wasn't super efficient. She was 4 for 12 or something like that tonight, which is not great. And she had a lot of rebounds and still had presence. But again, we know that's not a winning formula for the Sky. And there was no one on the Sky that really stood out. Cardoso was lax tonight. She struggled going to the hole. Again, I credit Natasha Howard, Aaliyah Boston, and the crew for, locking down the paint tonight. And Errol Atkins, I think, was the only player that shot out of the 30%, besides Haley Van Lith, who honestly played the 4 minutes at the very end. And I know it's like the junk time, but in that 40 minutes, or in that 4 minutes, sorry, she made 2 baskets. She was 2 for 2. And, besides the like flashbacks of last time she played Caitlyn Clark, as Caitlyn Clark went like behind the back and blew by her. Besides that part of it, she looked good. And honestly, she had probably the best performance of any Sky player that was out there tonight. And yeah, that team, it's a tough matchup. I think that they still have a lot of work to do to try to find out what works. And they didn't find it tonight against a really stout Fever defense. So we'll see as they develop. But man, this is not a confidence builder for them. And they just, they didn't take care of the ball. Again, Angel Reese, 5 turnovers in this too is tough. It's a tough go. And especially when we're also going to kind of talk about the mental of this team, because who is the leader on the Sky team? They don't have like a real strong, what I would go to point to veteran presence. They have Angel Reese again, kind of as a face of the franchise. But when she had her, we'll just talk about it. So when she had her anger moment, she got the ball. She pushes off on Natasha Howard's back. She's open for a layup, and Caitlyn Clark goes, okay, well, our defensive philosophy this year is no easy buckets, no and ones. I'm going to do a take foul, and I'm just going to slap the ball out of her hands and just make sure that she doesn't go up and make a basket. And she did that, and Angel Reese fell to the floor. I think the announcers and other people were saying that she was pushed. I didn't really see it. I think she just got fouled and she fell. To be completely honest, is not the most graceful of players. So she hits the floor fairly often. It's just how she plays. And it's fine. But at the same time, you can't then get back up. And she was saying, I think she was maybe embarrassed, or I don't know what was going on at that time. I don't know what demon she was fighting, but she got up. She's pissed off at Clark. Aaliyah Boston has to get in the way. We got the like get down, Madam President, and she gets exfiltrated. And to Clark's credit, she didn't. She immediately looked away. She's like, I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm walking to my bench. Sure enough, she gets assessed for a flagrant. And this is where like I have a tough time because the announcers even were talking about how like, oh yeah, she definitely pushed off on the left. And I think even one of the comments was, well, if there's a history there, then you have to err on the side of just calling a flagrant. And it's like, no, this is basketball. And the problem is that when you set precedent, like, oh, like I'm upset about it and we have history, so you're gonna call a flagrant and we're gonna make it more than it was, then players are going to flop or they're going to use that against like the refs in the system. And it's just silly because they also had a bad call in the next one, which got overturned, thankfully. But it's one of those things where, like, you know, Aaliyah Boston gets a technical out of it because she doesn't want Angel Reese to like attack her her point guard and Caitlyn Clark in the back of the head or something. And so like she gets involved, and so like it all kind of dissolves. And the point is though, is that if Angel Reese is the mental leader of, you know, she's the face and the leader of the Sky group, then she has to keep her composure. And I don't think that this moment has to be a big thing, but for her and this team, like the Fever got fired up and the Sky kind of just went down because also right after that, I believe that she left the game for a little bit. She had her timeout period to cool down. She was like taking off her jersey at one point or getting upset, or I don't know what was going on with her, but she lost her cool. And so if you are the leader and you are that face of the franchise, like you can't lose your cool like that. Like no disrespect to her, she had a tough game, whatever. But you got if you're the leader, you got to lead, and that was not a leader move. And you just watch the chart and just the charts for the Fever just they go in the right direction from that point on. But I think one of the funniest moments out of like all of this, though, speaking of Haley Van Lith, is there's a point where like when she came in, she's taking the ball down the court, and like some guy in the crowd is like, "Hey Haley, go back to the portal."
Van Lith,
and then part of me is like, actually, you know, Haley Van Lith, if you were watching this for some god awful reason, first off, I love you as a player. Thanks for tuning into this channel. You're not watching this. But if you are, get out. Get out as fast as possible. And I just think that the Sky franchise historically, the way they're trending, this is just going to be a mess for a while. And we'll see how they develop. But man, if I that was a diabolical thing to yell from the crowd. So whoever that guy is, if you're watching this guy, like that was good. That was pretty good. That got me in the feels right there. That was wild. But hilarious because honestly, again, she was one of the more impressive players, and I think that she could find a spot on a team and do some damage, but we'll have to see. But overall, my key takeaways for this game were there's a lot of room to grow still, defensively, offensively, finishing buckets, just kind of getting on the same page with passes. But I love what I see. We were down Sophie Cunningham and still performed amazingly. There's chemistry building. Like this team, 90 plus points. We left 30 on the table. I think this is great signs, and I think this is a championship contending team. I thought it, you know, near the end of last year, I was like, we need to get the pieces. And we had the front office change. We had the coaching change that I was hoping for. And then we made the offseason moves, picking up Natasha Howard, Dewana Bonner, Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, and these types of players. Brown Turner, we'll have to see how she pans out. But overall, like, so much more confidence in this lineup. However you mix and match it to perform versus last season. And I cannot wait to see more of this Fever team this season because it is going to be a fun time. We're going to run up some games. There's going to my heart's going to be like fully recovered this year. It's not going to be dying all the time until the playoffs, of course. But man, what a great start to the season. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And actually, the one question I still have out of all of this is what happened at the end of halftime? Because as Aaliyah Boston was going, finished her interview, there's a freeze frame right before they cut away and they don't acknowledge it of Aaliyah Boston with this shocked face. And I don't know what I still don't know what happened. Did a cameraman fall? Did someone get down on one knee and propose? Who knows what happened there? I want to know. Let me know down in the comments what you think happened to make Aaliyah Boston make this face. And yeah, until then, until next time, until next game, remember, you're going to be amazing today because you are amazing. And I'll catch you next episode.